Can you believe it's been nearly 6 years since we've had a Halo game? 6 years is a long time. I mean, as Halo fans, we've grown up. You know, we have different lives now. I'm very quickly approaching boomer status myself. In the meantime, the gaming industry has grown exponentially. We've had Battle Royale pop up out of nowhere, and all of a sudden we've got millions of kids playing Fortnite, Apex, and Warzone who probably have no idea what Halo is and might play it for the first time this holiday. I imagine when they boot up the game, the first thing that's going to go through their mind is something along the lines of,
"What's so special about Halo anyway?"
When confronted with this question, a Halo fan might reply in a variety of ways. Some more hostile than others. But one word we do tend to throw around is sandbox.
The sandbox.
Sandbox.
Now you might be thinking, well, what the heck is sandbox supposed to mean? Here's a literal picture of a sandbox to demonstrate. In Halo, and I guess all FPS games, the sandbox represents your play space. In some shooting games like COD, Valorant, CSGO, Overwatch, Destiny, the kids have to bring their own toys into the sandbox. What I mean by that is you, the kids in this situation, have to select a character already equipped with specific weapons or abilities or a loadout, and you take that into the play space, and that's what you play with. In Battle Royale games like Warzone, Apex, Fortnite, etc., the sandbox is more like a sand dune. It's a massive play space, and you might be able to bring a couple toys, but there's way more toys almost randomly scattered in the world around you, and if you're lucky, you might find a rare, powerful toy the moment you get there. Now in Halo games, back to the sandbox again, the toys that you get to bring in are useful but basic AF, and all the other kids have the exact same ones. But in the sandbox, well, that's where the fun begins.
Skewer acquired.
The entire game flow and experience of Halo is built around the toys in its sandbox. Weapons, equipment, and vehicles aren't scattered, but rather very strategically placed in the environment and in limited quantities. Good weapons sit up in high places or vulnerable areas, while weaker utilities are sometimes located right near your spawn. These toys are in the same locations every time you play, so a good Halo player needs to know where the good toys are, the best ways to get to them, and how to control them as they respawn throughout the game. Because of this, the bulk of the game experience essentially lives and dies around having a good sandbox. Good sandbox equals good Halo game. And man, when you have a good sandbox, combining and mixing all those toys together, that's what makes Halo so damn special. Well, then how's Halo Infinite Sandbox? Let's talk about it. In today's video, I'm going to share my thoughts on a variety of weapons in Halo Infinite's sandbox. For now, we're just going to look at UNSC weapons, so the BR Sidekick, Commando, AR Shoddy, Rocket Snipe, and I'll throw the frags and the melee system in as well. By the way, if you enjoy this breakdown and you want to see more just like it, let me know in the comments and hit that damn sub button. We are almost at 25K. Let's see how far we can take this thing before the game drops, because you know once that happens, it's grind season. Let's start with my favorite and arguably most important weapon in Halo Infinite, the battle rifle. The battle rifle in Halo is an iconic weapon. You pull the trigger to fire a precise 3-round burst, and with perfect accuracy, 4 bursts will take out your target. But what makes it so iconic? First, you've got that very deliberate yet satisfying pacing between bursts. Halo 2 nailed this. It's that unique rhythm that lets you patiently correct your aim on the fly and ensure that each burst hits perfectly. But it's also slow enough that if you miss a burst, it could be fatal. And then there's the control of the burst itself, something that was very important in Halo 3, understanding that each burst fires 3 consecutive bullets at a set rate of speed, and lining up that first bullet isn't good enough. A true master, so to speak, will micro-adjust their reticle during the burst to ensure each bullet hits accurately.
Perfect communication and execution from Frag.
Absolutely. Now Roy with
Perfect communication and execution from Frag. Absolutely.
Halo 5's BR adopted this more modern style with hit-scan aim, but they also sped up the burst, and that, combined with the game's bullet magnetism, kind of ensured that as long as you lined up the initial shot, the entire burst would hit the target with little effort, which sort of removes this concept of burst control that I think made the BR so special. And this leads me to the reason why I like Halo Infinite's BR. It feels like a best-of-both-worlds blend of Halo 5 and Halo 3. You've got the responsiveness of modern hit-scan aim, but the burst itself has been slowed down, and they actually matched the kill time to Halo 3's BR. On top of that, with Halo Infinite's reduced aim assist and bullet magnetism, it feels challenging and rewarding to hit shots, and like the classic games, you have to think a bit about that burst control during the gunfight. It doesn't feel too challenging though, and I'd say compared to other precision weapons like the Commando and the Sidekick, the BR is easier to use, but the slower time to kill kind of offsets that and puts it in what I'd say is a pretty good spot right now. There is one thing I don't like about this BR. It has a very slow draw time. It feels very slow to switch weapons and then shoot out of a weapon swap. And on one hand, I can kind of understand this. It's a rifle, it's heavier versus, say, a Sidekick, which is smaller and lighter and swaps and shoots faster. But the way it is now, it's slower than any other Halo, and it feels like I'm being punished for hitting a YY, which is a pretty standard technique. So it's kind of almost to the point where it's like clunky and unresponsive to me. That's just my thoughts on it. So hopefully they speed up the time to shoot out of a weapon swap. Overall, Halo Infinite's BR felt like a return to form. I think it was the weapon I enjoyed the most personally. Maybe it's just me, but nothing quite beats the feeling of a clean 4-shot perfect. Okay, let's move on. Next up, we've got the Sidekick. The Sidekick was probably the weapon I spent the most time with in the flight. At first glance, it reminds me of Halo 5's Gunfighter Magnum with a bit of influence from Halo 2's pistol, except this thing is actually useful. It takes 6 shots to break the shields, with a 7th to the head for a kill, or 4 more body shots, meaning at most, it can take you 10 shots to kill with this weapon. At first, I'll say I wasn't a huge fan of this thing. It's got very low aim assist, making it kind of difficult to control, especially at longer ranges, and it has bloom, which I know after the Halo Reach DMR, some of us are still suffering from PTSD. After spending some time with it though, I started to really enjoy it, and felt like these aspects really separated this weapon from others in the sandbox. The low aim assist makes landing shots feel skillful, especially at range, and because it's challenging to use at range, you're incentivized to pick up other weapons on the map, which is a nice difference from Halo 5's very versatile Magnum. As much as I love that thing, there's almost never a reason to put it down. And then there's the bloom, which unlike Halo Reach, it resets very quickly, and it doesn't feel like spamming it to try to hit a random headshot is ever really worthwhile unless you're at very close range. So in the end, what you get is a nice mix of rapid fire and pacing. Do you spam the shot, or do you pace yourself the whole way through, or use a bit of both? And I think having those options makes the weapon feel interesting and unique while still being skillful. Despite the challenge, I'd say the Sidekick also sits in a pretty good spot right now. Once you get the pacing down, you start breaking shields, landing that final flick headshot, so satisfying.
Triple kill.
Alright, next up, just to round out the precision weapons, let's talk about the Commando. The Commando is the first fully automatic precision weapon we've seen in a Halo game, which is a bit of a bold play for Halo, attempting to mix the skillful aspect of precision weapon gunplay with the satisfaction of just holding down a trigger and, you know.
Say hello to my little friend!
Just like the Sidekick, 6 shots will take out the shields with a 7 to the head for a perfect kill, or 4 to the body for a total of 10 shots max to take out a target. Now this thing is capable of killing very fast. In perfect conditions, it has about a 1-second time to kill, which is almost half a second faster than the BR. Honestly, watching this thing shred a Spartan almost looks like, and dare I say it, it looks like a Call of Duty kill.
No! God, please, no! 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 No!
But, hold on, what changes everything here is this gun's recoil. I believe this weapon has more recoil than anything else in the game at the moment. And that combined with the very low aim assist can make the Commando kind of difficult to control at times. It's weird, sometimes I found myself just completely melting bots, and then others I would lose control and just windmill like crazy. It does have some bloom as well, so you can't just hold down the trigger, and you can actually manage some of that bloom and recoil by crouching while you shoot, which I think is an interesting dynamic. Similar to the Sidekick, I like the diversity this weapon adds to precision gunplay. Now it's a question of, do I hold the trigger down and try to do damage quickly at risk of losing control of my gun, or do you pepper it from long range and try to precisely hit shots, and then once you break the shields, it's kind of like a DMR. You can just snap onto the head for a single shot kill. Now, balancing wise, I'm not sure where to place the Commando just yet. I think it has competitive potential, but I also think it might be very strong and difficult to deal with. So this is one of the weapons that I'm most looking forward to seeing in a proper competitive environment, just to see how it fares. I gotta say, between the BR, Sidekick, and Commando, it's pretty cool to see that each of these weapons feel uniquely satisfying despite being part of a similar category. And this is once again a nice change from Halo 5, where I felt like there was a lot of overlap. For example, you have the Magnum, the light rifle, the DMR, and carbine that basically all shoot the same laser beam at different rates of fire. That said though, I do think there's room in this sandbox for a laser accurate, highly skill-based precision weapon. And I love Halo 5's Magnum. I'd love to see a variation of it return in Halo Infinite, but I think what I'd like to see more is a new DMR. I just feel like with Halo Infinite's art style and sound design, it would be so sick in this game. Just make it like a 5-shot kill, skill-based. It'd be a perfect competitive weapon. There's actually two other weapons that I think might fill this category that we haven't tried yet. The first one is the Mangler, and we saw this last year in the campaign demo. It looks like the Mauler, but it's more of a precision revolver, and it doesn't seem fully fleshed out here, but in concept, I think this weapon is sick. It reminds me of the Bulldog pistol in Gears. And then there's that red beam rifle looking weapon we saw in the multiplayer art and we haven't seen in game yet. Is it a sniper? Is it a carbine? Is it something in between? I'm very curious to see where this weapon lands in the mix. Okay, precision weapons aside, let's go fully automatic. Up next, the assault rifle. First of all, let me just say, I think this might be the most satisfying assault rifle I've ever used in a Halo game. It's got this, like, chunky sound to it, and there's a nice punch behind each bullet landing. It just feels good to use. The assault rifle has always been an important weapon in Halo, but hasn't always been treated that way. Halo 3's assault rifle, for example, was extremely weak and inaccurate, and there wasn't much you could do to control the spread of the bullets, making it one of the worst weapons in the game, in my opinion, and something I wanted out of my hands as quickly as possible. Halo 5, on the other hand, had the opposite issue. You had a ton of control over bullet spread, plus there was the inclusion of the smart scope that tightened spread even further, and on top of that, the first bullet that you shot was always laser accurate, so if you feathered the weapon, you're basically using a slightly less effective precision rifle capable of picking up kills across the map. So this time around in Halo Infinite, it's nice to see that the difference in spread between scoping and hipfire is pretty negligible. Of course, zooming will give you some benefits, but the recoil pattern is mostly the same, meaning you're not going to be cross-mapping with this thing. And if you feather it, you'll notice it's not laser accurate like Halo 5's AR. There's still a bit of spread here, once again keeping it well within its close to mid-range role. Managing the bloom and recoil on this weapon definitely takes some skill and feels satisfying, but overall I didn't find it difficult to use, and it can kill very fast. We're looking at an optimal kill time of just over 1 second. So when it comes to balance, I'd say in a social setting, this weapon feels alright, maybe a little strong, and of course we got to play more PvP, but just due to the lack of difficulty and sheer effectiveness, I don't think something like this could work in competitive unless they were to pull back on damage and limit it to a pickup on the map. The assault rifle might be pretty good at close range, but let's talk about the true king of CQC, the shotgun. I mean, it's a shotgun. It's pretty straightforward. You pull the trigger, shoot the pellets, and, you know, don't miss. It is a little different than the shotgun we're used to seeing in past Halos, and visually, of course, it's a completely different shotgun, but instead of the typical one-shot kill, this time it'll take you at least 2. The trade-off here, though, is it has a pretty decent effective range, as opposed to the sharper drop-off in damage you get with the classic shotty, and it has a faster rate of fire. This weapon was definitely satisfying to use. Balancing-wise, it seemed fine, though I really only tested it on bots, but I do think that this type of shotgun, as opposed to a one-shot style of shotgun, is perfect perfect for competitive play. Just based off my experience with Halo 5, having a one-shot kill shotgun can be very powerful and I think more likely to be abused in competitive, especially in Halo 5's case where you could get a one-shot kill from up to 10 meters away. I think it just puts players in more situations where they feel like instead, having to work a little harder for the kill adds some room for outplayability, while the gun is still clearly very effective. That said though, I do think the classic style shotgun still has a valuable place in the sandbox, and I want to see it return. I feel like historically the shotgun has always been designed as a perfect counter to the sword. Being able to stop someone with a one-shot mid-lunge for a bolt true is such a core aspect of Halo's gameplay, especially in game types like Infection. Without it, I think game modes like this might not be the same anymore. So, well, I like this current style of shotgun, and I think it's perfect for competitive. Hopefully, at some point, they resurrect the old one too. Still got a few more weapons to cover today. Let's bring out the big guns. We'll start with the Spanker. I love the design and sound of this weapon. It just feels powerful to hold. Back in Halo 5, they launched with a different style of rocket launcher that was smaller before later bringing back the Spanker off of popular demand. On top of this design just being way more iconic, the reason why I like this more is because the size of it makes it harder to use. You're blocking a good chunk of your vision just carrying this beast on your shoulder, which in my opinion is a fair trade-off for the ridiculous amount of power you have once you've got someone in your sights. Using the rockets is, of course, pretty straightforward. You got two in the barrel, just aim and fire, but watch out for the splash damage because it's kind of insane in this game. You can see it in the firing range. You've got a very wide area of effectiveness using this thing, definitely more than past Halos, although I guess this also means you could very easily kill yourself with it.
Quiet.
But personally, I think the splash damage might be a little too crazy. Of course, a rocket is a somewhat slow-moving projectile, so you need to be in a good mid-range scenario to use this effectively. Once you've found that, though, you don't really need to aim too well to pick up kills with the splash. And I understand that part of that is by design. Once again, we'd have to see more PvP to really tell. There's also other areas they could tweak that could impact balance as well. For example, they could slow the time to shoot out of a weapon swap or out of mechanics like sprint to ensure that you really have to commit to using this weapon if you want to get kills with it. There is one thing I do hope they change. You would think with all this power there'd be some cool effects to go with it, but right now the explosion just kind of fizzles out without doing any damage to the environment, and anyone caught in the blast just sort of falls over. Like, come on, give me some good old-fashioned ragdolls.
Another one down.
Of course I had to save the best for last. One of the most important weapons in the game. We got to talk about the snipe. I'm just going to start by saying I think this might end up being the most difficult sniper to use in the franchise so far, at least if you're on controller. There is no aim assist whatsoever when in hipfire, and a very small amount when scoped in. There also appears to not be any bullet magnetism on the shot itself, meaning if that reticle isn't directly lined up with your opponent's head, that shot's not connecting. This is definitely a big change from the much more forgiving sniper in Halo 5, and on one hand, I'm for it. I think this is a step in the right direction, but I also think this is going to change playstyle when sniping in a big way. Going to go on a bit of a tangent here, but Frosty had a tweet related to this recently that I want to speak to. Basically, while bullet magnetism in Halo 5 made sniping more forgiving, it also kind of birthed a whole new playstyle with snipe based on high speed and very flashy plays. I think some people are quick to assume that having bullet magnetism means skill is automatically reduced, when this isn't necessarily true. In Halo 5's case, what this meant was now you could take bigger risks and make these bold, creative plays, and this was a whole new skill gap, incorporating different layers of movement, prediction, reaction, and execution that you don't really see in other Halo games. And sure, every once in a while you can get away with kind of just flicking and praying, but the skill required to execute quickly and consistently at a high level, just snapping on heads left and right while thrusting around at high speeds and mixing in the fundamentals from the classic games as well, there was a unique kind of art, so to speak, behind this that very few people were capable of mastering. In Halo Infinite, because sniping is much less forgiving, it won't really make sense to play this way anymore. Instead, what I assume is the playstyle with sniping is going to slow down a lot, and focus will more strictly be placed on fundamentals, keeping your distance and holding a position. I don't think we'll see nearly as many flashy snipes anymore, although I guess when we do see them, they'll be that much more exciting, which is ultimately why I think we're heading in the right direction. I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's kind of a lost art here, and it deserves some respect and appreciation, god damn it. I guess you'll only really care if you're a H5 kid like me, I don't know.
Kills coming in from Moot. Don't do. Oh! Send him home! Send him home! Way to send him home!
Also note though that mouse and keyboard isn't impacted by any of this. Mouse has always had an advantage in sniping, and now that advantage is just going to become more dramatic. So we might still see flashy plays, they might just now be more exclusive to mouse than ever before. So this is a whole other discussion topic, but now I'm very curious to see how something like this is going to shake things up in esports. Now, aim assist discussion aside, just a few notes about the sniper itself. It definitely feels a little unpolished, and going to paraphrase Mint Blitz from his YouTube video here, but he had mentioned that scoping in, it feels like it doesn't quite zoom in to where it should. It's kind of a little to the left or to the right of where it should land. I kind of got that feeling as well. And also zooming in, the initial zoom feels like it zooms a little too far. My biggest concern though, and this is something I brought up in a previous video and I plan to bring it up in a future one as well. This is an issue that I think was carried over from Halo 5. The time it takes to zoom out of a weapon swap. In Halo 5 with the ADS system, you have to wait for the weapon to swap and set in your hands before you can zoom in. And I think it has something to do with the animation to your face that's causing this. Whereas in classic games, you can start the zoom before the weapon swap even finishes, which is very important. This doesn't speed up the time to shoot, it just speeds up the time that you can get into zoom. And with a game like Halo that has descope, being able to get into zoom quickly and efficiently is very important, especially for sniping. The way it stands now, it just feels like sniping is very unresponsive because you have to wait to zoom after you switch. So I hope this is fixed. This is a universal issue, not just for snipe, but for every weapon. I want to see this fixed. Just to double take, not to hammer too hard on that point, I just think that being able to scope in Halo Infinite as fast as you could in the classic games will improve weapon responsiveness and just make Halo feel more like Halo. I think that's really what we want in the end of the day. Anyway, that just about does it for today's video. I've got my outro shirt on, so that's how you know we gotta wrap it up. But I said I would cover frags and melee, so real quick, I'll just say I enjoyed the frags. They feel good. They throw faster in this game. The velocity of the nade and the speed of the animation feels faster, which the worry here is maybe you can spam them, but they limited the amount that you can hold to two different types, so 4 in total, and the frags feel weaker, so it's a good offset. I think they're in a good spot, just got to see more in PvP. Now, the melee, on the other hand, this one I am worried about. I think it's too strong. The lunge range is too far and too forgiving and too fast, a million different things. The speed of it feels good, but the lunge range at the moment is crazy. If you sprint melee, it's wild. And there's an aim assist on it too. It feels like if you miss the melee, it compensates and turns and hits it for you. I'm not sure why this is. It just feels more forgiving than any other Halo game. The trades feel very forgiving as well. Like when you get a melee trade, if you hit the button late, you still get the trade, which on one hand, I like this. There's so many situations in past Halos where you should have got the damn trade and you didn't get the damn trade, but you still hit the button. But in this game, it feels very forgiving. Like, if you're late and you probably should have died, you still do get the trade. So I just feel like that could be a minor annoyance in PvP, especially in competitive. With melees this strong and this far, I just think it's going to be abused if it's not changed. But feel free to let me know what you think of the melee system and how it is so far. And sorry, I realized I said the melee was strong twice. The actual damage that it does is fine. I've got no issues there. Just the speed, the distance of the lunge, the assistance on the lunge that I think will be an issue. But let me know what you guys think, not only of the melee, but of all these weapons. In today's video, we covered quite a bit today, everything UNSC. There's still so much to cover, so let me know in the comments what else you want to see. Overall, though, when it comes to weapons, I gotta say, I'm pretty damn happy with what they've got so far. Like, sure, we need some minor tweaks in a couple areas, but man, what a step in the right direction. Like, the sandbox feels more diverse than ever before, and they haven't even showed many weapons. Everything feels useful in its own right, and of course, I didn't cover everything, but I think there's a value and there's kind of a category that you can place each of these weapons in, and that's exactly what you want to see in a Halo game. You want to see a good, diverse sandbox. So this is exciting stuff. of course, not everything is exciting in Halo right now. We got no co-op campaign, no Forge on launch, which frickin' blows. I'm not happy about it. But on the flip side, there is also the esports org announcement. If you're an esports fan, I mean, the orgs for Infinite Esports look top tier, and I can't wait to talk about that too. So let me know what you want to hear the most about in the comments below. But for now, I'm going to sign off. That's it for me. Hit like if you like this stuff. Hit sub if you want to see more. Check out related videos. Good luck on the way.